Hello, Brandon here from Dime Cabaret. We don't post here very often, but we're going to try to make a bit of an effort to post a little bit more frequently so you guys have a bit more of an idea of what's going on and so that you remember that we exist. We have a lot to talk about, so why not chuck it into video form and just, let you know what I'm thinking of doing today. Because just earlier I was having a listen to some of our music and actually looking at very long story with Dime Cabaret, but in 2019 or in 2020 we actually released this full album. So the album that's coming out in October, we released it in 2020, so like 3 years ago. But it sucked. So for a number of reasons, most of which we will not go into today, but hopefully one day. And I was just listening to our old tracks and sort of comparing them to the new stuff. Obviously, I'd like to think that the new stuff is a lot better. I think that is true for the most part. But I thought, why not, as like some special content, why don't we go back into one of the original tracks? Why not start with Festival of Witches, just since that's the latest song that came out. And it's also one of the more interesting songs because it started off pretty bad. So, Festival of Witches was like it wouldn't even be in the top 5. Like, Festival of Witches, I would say, was like one of the most forgettable songs. But Festival of Witches actually now is really good. So it's interesting to see the difference. So if you haven't listened to Festival of Witches yet, it is streaming on Spotify and Apple Music and all those kinds of places. We like people who listen on Spotify. Personally, I actually really like Apple Music, but I listen on Spotify. So if you can check it out on Spotify, get us those monthly listeners. It helps us because it makes the algorithm happy and they like the proof that people listen to it. So if you want to listen to Festival, it's on Spotify and all those other places. But yes, so listen to Festival and then come back to this video, or listen to this one first, or watch this video first. You probably have never heard this before. Very small number of people have. We quickly buried it. Part of the complicated story, I didn't want to release this, and I regret releasing it, even though I was forced to release it for a number of reasons. Because now, for example, there's this thing called Music Match Pro or something like that, where you can like put the lyrics in. So with DistroKid, we distribute through DistroKid, they make you pay now for lyrics, which is weird. So now I just go straight from Music Match, but like it's got all the old songs for some reason. Like they're just there, like stuck. All the old cover art and all that. So that's one. Once you release something with music, it's not as bad as like when you release a book on like Amazon. Like that's there literally forever. Music is not as bad, but since we released it, there's just little nuggets of like the old Dime Cabaret album just everywhere. I think you can even pirate it on some shady sites. If you're really desperate, you probably can find this somewhere, but whatever. So here's Festival of Witches. Like right from the beginning, and the same thing is in like Dime Cabaret as well, the original version, where there's no flow. Like it just like bam, it's like start and stop like the whole intro. Whereas now it's got that riff like so like it's changed so much. The only thing that hasn't really changed, to be honest, is the drums. This part is actually pretty much the same. The brass samples that we're using here are a lot worse. Like they sound like there's not really any life or anything to them. But for the most part, that's like the same melody that I play in the current version. Verses are pretty much the same. So in the writing of this album, for the most part, it was not me writing the lyrics. I wrote Lady Midnight and Great Man and a couple of other ones. Mostly it was our old singer, and she wrote most of the lyrics. Festival of Witches, along with Death Waltz, which you haven't heard yet, and maybe another one, but I'm pretty sure Festival of Witches and Death Waltz were the main ones where we collaborated on lyrics, which is weird for me because I don't really collaborate on lyrics ever. In fact, this is probably the only time I've ever collaborated on lyrics. Yeah, we were writing these lyrics pretty much on the day we recorded them, or the night before. So I wrote some of these lyrics, which is why they're good. Not that the other lyrics are bad. The overall structure of it's pretty much the same. There's the drums going all the way through, mostly quiet, and then like just some guitar arpeggiated chords ringing out, which is what we've got in the most recent track as well. It's just very like two-dimensional. A lot of the old songs, like it is crazy how much they have changed. Even when a change is very small, how big of an impact it actually has. I don't know if that's like guitar parts. The addition of Pat in the new songs makes a huge difference, having like an actual lead guitar, because then it frees up the other guitar to like, I don't know, maybe I think I sucked at writing a little bit more back in these days. And also my guitar tones felt dead already, so it's like everything, and obviously I mixed this. I'm better at mixing now, I think, but the mixing gives it no assistance because it's very poorly mixed. But it was also just badly recorded in the first place. Like there's only so much you can do. This verse is actually pretty good. Another thing I feel like I did a lot back in the old days, I don't think I do it as much now, but there's that guitar melody that's like do 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 do, and the vocal melody da 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 da, they're like exactly the same. And like why would I do that? I feel like the more things that are just doing the same thing, the narrower and like less interesting, obviously. Like if you have a completely different part, it's obviously a lot better and it expands. This probably doesn't make sense, but like I feel like the more unique elements there are, the bigger the soundscape overall in terms of like musical melodies. Whereas if everything's just the same, it's very narrow, like what you're listening to. The breadth or diversity of like the elements in the track. So the bridge has always been one of the best parts of the album. Like I remember even back then I was like, yep, like the bridge is easily the best part of the song, and probably was still one of the best parts of the album. Now it's just even better. I also much prefer what we do with this part nowadays. Nothing wrong with it back then, it was still cool, but it was sort of just the same thing as all the other choruses, slowed down with some weird effects, whereas now it actually sounds distinct. Like it actually sounds like a part that's from a song, not just like a random slowed down amateur thing. There's also like not many haze and woes, even though I remember when we were recording this, I swear to God we put like way more in there. I don't know if I forgot or if we didn't want them back then. It's not terrible, but it's very forgettable. Like there's not really anything in the song, I think, that makes you want to listen to it. I wouldn't say there's any cool parts. Everything's very basic and like, look, the whole thing sounds amateurish. So maybe that's part of it. Yeah. The biggest changes, I reckon, are the main riff that I'm playing now. Because that's cool. I like playing it. I think it sounds cool. It's immediately better than what I was just playing, which was just spamming chords. Like every song has just spamming chords in it. So I think if you can turn something into a riff, it instantly makes things more... Well, number one, it makes it more iconic. You know, you can now remember this song as, oh yeah, that's the song that has that riff in it. Sort of influenced a little bit by the riff at the beginning of A Night on the Town by the Deer Hunter, which when I was going back into this song, trying to figure out how to make it better, that was a song... A Night on the Town was a song that I sort of examined a little bit as to like why that's good. Pat's lead guitar lines, the way he plays sometimes is like not exactly on the grid. Like it always feels like it's moving and dynamic, but it still works. Like, it doesn't sound out of time, even if he does play out of time. And I'm not saying he does play out of time, but he self-professes that he plays out of time sometimes. But I don't think it matters, because it's locked in enough, and it's playing the role that it's playing. There's just way more energy in the new one. Like a lot of these songs. It's just more interesting. Like, I don't know why. I don't know what we did. Got better at writing songs, but it is like it's a completely different song. I think it's better in every way. Yeah, so that's Festival of Witches. Just thought I'd sit down and go through it, make this video for anyone who's interested, and for my future reference if I ever want to look back on these days. The days of the first album, many years in the making. I started doing this album in 2018. Technically, that's when I wrote Ode to Lady Midnight. Back then it was called Wine on Carpet. Yeah, so a lot has happened since then. And I think these songs clearly show how much work and effort has been put into it. If you want to listen to it, we would greatly appreciate that. If you want to buy some merch, we have a kind of a merch store. It's just got like t-shirts and hoodies. You can get this hoodie, the clown, political clown hoodie. It's my favorite, very warm. I think this one's like $50-$60. Merch sales really help us. We recently just invested almost $1,000 into lighting, but that's looking sick. So if you want to come to our next gig at Cactus Room, you can see the lights in action, and we will also be there. That's on Saturday the 26th in Melbourne, and we would love to see you there with Arc of Sun and Tina Growls. It's our breakout from... We've been playing with a lot of rock bands, indie rock, and there's like a lot of punk rock as well in Melbourne. But we are trying to separate ourselves from them a little bit, because we don't fit at all with that kind of music. We're very prog and completely different. We look stupid sometimes on those lineups. So we're playing with some proggier sort of spooky bands, so that's going to be a really good afternoon at 2:30. Tickets on sale, $15. And yeah, just follow us if you want to keep up with what's going on. This video was pretty long. I might try to make some shorter ones. I want to do some streaming as well. I've been playing System Shock at the moment. Nearly finished it up to security level. And also writing a book. More info on that soon when I get at least halfway through it. Thanks for everyone who's been engaging with what we've been putting out and listening. It's been really nice. It's been nice to hear your feedback, positive and negative, even though sometimes your negative feedback's pretty silly. Just kidding. Yeah, so I've been Brandon. Dime Cabaret. Check it out. I'll see you next time.